Welcome back to Signed and Slabbed. I am your host, Dave, and we've got some more hobby drama. Today, we're going to talk about autographs, or not autographs, but speaking engagement. So, if you've been paying attention, we had an event where Tom Brady was appearing as the keynote speaker at a business conference in Miami recently. And as part of that event, there were VIP packages that could be purchased for $3,600 that included some offsite activities, a VVIP reception, and tickets obviously to the event, but also included was the opportunity to, well, at least meet, but not necessarily greet Tom Brady and get an item of your own autographed by him. And so a couple people have covered this pretty well, so I'll try to link to their stuff. Darren Ravel at Collect Media had done a piece on it and a little bit of follow up on their Instagram page there. And then our good buddy P. Ryan, he was actually an attendee and was hopeful to have actually gotten some items signed. He did a pretty good video talking about what the actual experience of it. So he's the only person that I know personally that could speak to what was actually happening as it was going on. But again, I'll try and remember to link to those for anybody that wants to watch that stuff. But it has raised the question of what's fair to expect of these athletes at, I guess, some of these events. And it appears some questions are being raised of what should maybe be included in contracts or not, including quality of autograph clauses, as well as then maybe mental allocation of what you were getting paid to do, whether Fanatics should have been involved or not. A lot of questions, but here's what we know. Tom went to the event, and as part of it, there were 100 VIP packages that were available to take the picture and get something signed. What appears happened is that of those 100 available slots, not all of them had been sold amongst the attendees at the event. And so, as tends to be, the autograph collecting community sensed an opportunity to potentially get something signed at less than the rack rates that Fanatics charges when Tom does private signings. And so they got in touch with I guess, affiliate of the event promoter that was actually in charge of sort of moving this stuff out, or maybe it's subcontracted with the event promoter to move them out. I don't know. But it appears that of the 100 slots, somewhere 30, maybe up to 40 of the slots have been taken up by more of the pro autograph seeker types. And so when Tom showed up in the room to sign this stuff, it was a room full of game used footballs and some helmets, some cleats, like a bunch of stuff that, quite clearly a Tom Brady autograph would very likely increase its value by quite a bit. Certainly, at least compared to Fanatics pricing for game use items, which my understanding was like $10,000 an item. The $3,600 for the ticket and I believe it was $2,500 for the additional autograph seems like a pretty good deal. Well, it sure seems like Tommy wasn't too happy about that, and he proceeded to not signed the autograph that you would typically come to expect from his Fanatics private signings. It was more akin to his in person, out in public signature, which people have called the Tornado Tom signature. But there, some of these signatures, I'm not even sure that they qualify as Tornado Toms. And so, the question becomes, what really should have happened here? So I'm going to give you my thoughts. Darren and Pat have given you theirs in their deal. You can check those out. Also Matt Powers, who's one of the uh, guys that accepts send-ins and handles items on behalf of other people. Some of these signings, he's sort of given his view too. I'm going to give you mine. So I think that the right answer here was really that if Tom wasn't comfortable signing something, he should have just not signed it. And what I'm hearing from some of the other people and a lot of the discussion around this is, questions of whether or not he had kind of ruined these items. And no one really seems to want to go on the record as saying he ruined them. I'm going to go on the record as suggesting that for the items where he just took a silver pen and squiggled on a game used Super Bowl football, he pretty much ruined it. And I get to that conclusion by asking the following question: do you think the item is now more or less valuable now that there's a mysterious looking can't be authenticated less than a Tornado Tom on there? It's just like random silver ink on a game used football. I don't think that's good. I think that as they are in their current situation, those items are actually worth less now because I would argue that they've been damaged. So they're not worthless if that's how you want to define ruined. It's not the same as if he'd taken these and pitched them into a campfire and then pulled them out after they're charred out a little bit, or tossed them down a water slide somewhere. Uh, but the scribbly dibbly that he put on there, I don't really think improved the value of the items at all. So from if you want to get them signed properly, you still got to do that, and there's to be this like other random silver paint sitting on there. That's not good. Um, and look, this is true at all the private signings and in the public signings. Tom hasn't really done like a public sit down signing like the autograph convention or card show attendees are sort of used to. He's always really done these things as private signings in controlled environments. Or originally he was with TriStar, and then more recently he moved on over to Fanatics. And so you know that that creates a little bit of difference, I think, in terms of what we're used to seeing, but also what Tom's experience with this stuff is. Now, I'm and the point around that is that any of these signings, publics or privates, it's pretty common that if guys don't want to sign something, they have the right to refuse it. And look, in those instances, you'd simply get your money returned. And so to me, that creates an interesting the triangle between Tom and the attendees slash autograph purchasers, and then the promoters. Like where does sort of the liability there, the refund requirement exist? Does it sort of exist in between everybody? Was it more of a promoter issue of not having properly marketed what it was exactly in the VIP experience that they were selling? I mean, those are things that everybody's going to have opinions on. I don't know what the right answer is. I know who could have made it clearer than anyone else, and that's still Tom. So I'm I'm personally not too bothered about whether Tom had hurt feelings or not. I don't consider Tom to be a novice at all in the memorabilia and autograph game. Uh, Tom is he's first of all he's a professional. Second of all, he's a grown adult, and third of all, he did get paid to be at this event, and it clearly part of it included signing some autographs. And if he wasn't explicit about what he would and wouldn't sign, that creates some issue there. And whether that issue is between him and his agent or otherwise, again, I think the easy answer was if he wasn't comfortable signing or didn't want to do it, then he just shouldn't have signed certain things. But I think once he sort of agreed to the point of signing things, throwing the tornadoes on there, and by the way, he did that to everything, including like hats and other stuff. Like these Tom Brady's were basically the lowest quality that you could have ever experienced. And I know there'd been some discussion. Pat had mentioned that like the people that were getting their pennants and their coffee mugs uh, signed by him were ecstatic about it, and like that's okay. But are we sure they'd still be ecstatic if they understood that maybe there was another version of the signature that was actually moderately more legible than the again the scribbledy dibbly that he put on there. I mean, I don't know, it's all sort of conjecture, speculation. But at the end of the day, I'm going to keep returning to if someone wanted to take some of the I don't know some of the confusion out of it. I think Tom could have just elected not to sign certain things and left that up to whatever whatever steps would have come next. He chose not to do that, which in my mind my opinion is that it demonstrates a little bit of contempt for the people that tried to get one over on him here. And now, as someone who's operated in the autograph space for a long time, look, I understand that there's risks when you go to get stuff signed, especially when you're out running around. And it's not uncommon for these athletes, a lot of them, to have a different signature when you're popping out from behind a trash can in an alley as they're trying to, get on the bus or even just like, go walk around a mall or something like that. uh, that that can be a little unnerving for these people because I've seen it happen. I've been in a previous part of my life was guilty of being part of the wolf packs that would corner these guys. Um, but in this instance, still a little bit more of a controlled situation, and in those I don't think it's not unreasonable to have an expectation that like you're gonna get a better version of a signature in the controlled setting than what you get out in the wild chasing people on the streets. um and again, it's clear that Tom has different versions of his signature. So I'm going to go back to I think he, for whatever reason, he felt a little contemptuous about what had occurred and decided that maybe he'd send some people a message. And I mean he did this to a number of game used items, including some cleats and other stuff. And again, Tom's a pro. He there's no chance that he's unable to discern the difference between a store bought plastic football and a football that's got like the Patriots tape and logo and all the other crap on it. Having been from a game, I feel pretty good that he'd be able to know whether certain cleats were like the right sort of cleats and setups of what he'd worn in games. So to do that, it's almost a little bit childish, if you ask me. I don't think that was necessary. So, now it also then there is still the question though of Darren had made the point of it wasn't an autograph signing. I'm going to differ on that a little bit and suggest that it was an autograph signing for 100 items. Now, if there were limitations on what some of those items should have been, maybe again, whose fault is that that wasn't disseminated properly? We know for sure that there were people who had put cards in, and so because Tom didn't sign the cards, which we all feel pretty confident that's part of like card signing. He's absolutely exclusive with Fanatics on that. If he didn't sign the cards at the event, there clearly was some sort of mental process going on of what he could and couldn't sign or would choose to sign or not. None of the cards got signed. This other stuff did. Again, I I'm surprised he just didn't extend the non-signing of the cards into this other stuff. And that's, to me, it's just disappointing. I also think it raises some issues out there for some different collectors. I think that most of the people that were there trying to get stuff signed, even the memorabilia folks, they probably in general like Brady, certainly as an athlete, and maybe even inspired by some of his stories. The reports of his speech from the conference were all very good, and it was about hard work and doing things the right way and putting in the effort. And so to then turn around at the end of that hour and on the autograph, maybe not exactly congruent messages there. So again, it's a little bit disappointing. But I do think at the end of the day, it is a stark reminder that look, these autograph signings or items being signed, even just wherever, it may not always go the way that you think it should go in your head. And the longer you're out there doing these sorts of things, the more apparent it can become to you. But I also think it's important to learn from it. And there are people certainly in the hobby world that have better reputations than others for handling items, assisting to kind of ensure that the customers are getting the best version of signatures and the best results they can on these items from the different athletes. Um, you guys know one of my favorites. He's a friend of mine. Runs a great outfit on this. Ryan Fitterman Sports. They do a great job. There are certainly tons of other people out there that do great jobs as well. Sean at Famous Inc. is really good at this stuff too. So just a couple of examples, not intended to be holistic. I've done things with other athletes through Fanatics. My stuff was always handled well when I did that. I think that they do a great job and continue to learn how to do better jobs and over time are discovering better ways to communicate to clarify what can and can't be done at certain of the signings. And that, I think, as collectors, that's really the best you can ask for, is sort of clarity and understanding what's okay, what's not, what sort of your responsibilities are, but also then, having the right and reasonable sorts of expectations on the back end. So, interested to hear what other people think. From what I've kind of seen hobby wide, I think most people were really disappointed in Tom. There's a contingent that, maybe thinks it's not quite as clear. Where do you fall? Interested to hear about it. Comment on the video. I'm happy to continue the dialogue around this. And otherwise, be careful out there. Make sure your pens are working if you're handing them off. And if you're running a signing, make sure you got enough pens that work. And if you're an athlete, just sign it right. The difference between signing it decent and throwing up is so little time. Especially if you're sitting down, getting paid in any mechanism whatsoever. I don't care if 95% of this you thought was for the speech, if 5% was for the autographs. If you're not comfortable signing something, obviously don't do that. But if you're going to make the commitment to put the ink on the item, just do it right in the first place. So until next time, Dave at Sign and Slab, signing out.